teach me how to wash my face and be emotionally vulnerable. Wow, a bunch of your little friends remodel my apartment, huh? So, we're here. We're exclusively queer. Now, what are we gonna do about the heterosexuals? Are they an insidious and deeply malevolent death cult? Yeah. As the grainy JPEG of Graham Chapman's full frontal scene from that movie, painstakingly low, line by line, pixel by pixel, the true purpose of the internet is revealed. Change your whole life, honey!
Good morning. So you're in New York right now, and you're doing your one-man show, The Heterosexualists. What is that about, and are you thinking of becoming one?
No, I'm not thinking of switching over to join that team. But yeah, I'm doing my show, The Heterosexuals, which I have been performing in different places for the past 3 years.
Mhm.
And sort of the idea of the show is kind of that I have assembled a secret meeting of queer people to say all the things that we want to say that we
Mhm.
wouldn't, necessarily reveal in mixed company about our true feelings about the heterosexuals, and also sort of figure out how we're going to solve that problem, how we're going to deal with them, what's to be done about them. And then the sort of, the gag of it, the satire of it is that, of course, it's extremely unlikely that the audience ever will actually be 100% queer. And in many places when I've done it, I'm sure it is, in fact, a majority straight audience. But it's fun to tell the audience who they are and tell them, what their experience is. And it becomes this kind of game that they get to participate in and join a club that they wouldn't usually get to be a member of for an hour.
Johnny, I believe in your research, you pretended to be one. What did that incur you doing?
Well, yeah, that is something I like to say about the show. The truth is, I mean, like many of us, the undercover that research that I did as a heterosexual, I did in high school when I was in the
Oh,
closet.
yeah.
That's that time in my life for me. Yeah. But it's I don't know, it was something that I wanted to sort of think about and investigate because I was finding that there was that period in my life. I'm sure this is true for a lot of people,
Mm.
where you're like, okay, well, was I a heterosexual when I was saying that I was one? Was I part of that community? And what did that mean? And what happens to that version of me? Like was he real? Do I pretend now that he didn't exist, that he didn't have his own little
Yeah.
time in the sun?
So this research now didn't make you want to change.
No, no, I have not been tempted thus far.
Um, what would your new heterosexual friends think of your other day job? I'm talking about Boylesque. I know
Oh,
you're
yeah.
one of the founders, but do you perform in it too?
Yeah, well, what I usually do is act as MC for the shows. So I will be hosting the shows. Sometimes I'll, sing an opening number. Basically, my job there is to distract the audience while somebody's, picking up the panties off of the stage in between strip numbers. There have been times where I have had to, fill in a group number or do some sort of like sexy dance, but generally I think I am better serving the cause on the microphone.
Very tactful.
Yeah, yeah. But the for me, the sort of the joy of doing those shows, or sort of the fun game that I like to play, is I know if I'm hosting a strip show that nobody has really come there to see the host. They've come to see the naked people. And
Mhm.
so my aim is to switch the audience's allegiance over the course of the show. I want to steal the show from the strippers. I want to have them forget about the naked people by the end and be like, oh, actually, the best part of the show was that charming host.
So does it work really? Or in
Oh,
your
it's happened.
mind, you're in your mind, you think it works.
In my mind, it definitely works. But I have had audience members come up to me after and say, like, oh, you were the best part of the show, which is always what I'm looking for.
I think that's a bit sad, personally. Not no offense against you, but if, but if they're hot Canadian men,
Oh, I mean, but don't discount this hot Canadian comedy.
you wear many, many hats. So talk to me about one of your butch ones. That is, hey girl, hey girl.
That's a beloved for me nightlife event party that I ran for many years. We actually did the final edition of it last year in Toronto for Pride. We had Bi Girl Bi, but that was a dance party that I threw every month for about 8 years, and it was so fun. I would DJ it, and the idea was that it was a sort of hip hop and R&B night, but focusing on female artists. So there had to be a female or, non-binary trans artist on the track to get played. Basically starting because I needed to throw a party one night um, at a venue, and I was just like, oh, I just want an excuse to play a lot of Missy Elliott because that would be really fun for me.
Mhm.
And I did it, and then suddenly all these people showed up and all of these gay boys came and all of these lesbians showed up and these, young trans kids started showing up. And it was just a really fun event. And we'd always have a drag show as part of it, and a bunch of different performers over the years, some of whom went on to be on Canada's Drag Race, which was really cool to sort of watch their star rise. But for for most of the events for a very long time, it was always this one performer named Beardonce,
Mhm.
who was such a joy and just a drag performer who she used her own long, beautiful hair, big beard, hairy chest, not padded, not tucked, but was, I don't know, just had so much charisma and personality. And, you'd see her up on stage and you'd be like, oh, that is Beyonce, that is Rihanna. And yeah, the audiences just loved her. And I think there was something magic in the nights that the two of us were able to collaborate on.
You wrote for Young Theatre a play called Redhead Stepchild, which got five-star reviews. Well done. Um,
Mhm.
I'm curious about that. Was it, was that part of your life story?
Yeah, Redheaded Stepchild is a show that I was performing off and on for about a decade, and it is in print now from Playwrights Canada Press. Actually, I brought some copies with me to New York and sold a couple last night. It's a one-person play, and it is fiction, but it draws heavily on my own childhood and my own experiences. I'm not personally a stepchild, which the character is, but
Yeah.
there was something in that phrase, the idiom of redheaded stepchild that I was hearing a lot at the time that I was writing it, and I was like, it's used in such a pejorative way, and just this idea that like, oh, that's this really unwanted thing that nobody would want to be. And I don't know, I found myself, my heart kind of going out, and I was like, but somebody is a redheaded stepchild, and what's so bad about that? Neither of those things are that person's fault.
How did that come about? Were you commissioned to do that?
No, that was just something that under my own steam, I started working on and then performed at a number of different theaters and festivals over the years, having the coloring that I have, having this head of hair, it's always just had this, I don't know, strange kind of outsized importance in my life. I always feel like my hair enters the room before I do, and there's been so many strange experiences that I've had in connection to it. So I think I've been thinking for a long time about, I don't know, needing to make some kind of
Yeah.
piece of art to kind of exercise all of those feelings.
And if that's not enough, you've also written and directed a film.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, a short film
Is
called
there no,
Saturn's
is there
Hours.
no end to your talent?
There is no end. No.
So
I like to stay busy.
I want to get serious for 1 second. You're a queer Canadian. What do you
Mm.
think about all the rampant homophobia and transphobia that's happening down here in the US right now? Do you think it will affect you all up north of our border?
Everything that happens in America affects Canada for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, it's obviously been really dispiriting to see the shift in the rhetoric here. And it does feel like this sort of step backwards on progress for things that, it's hard. I guess you realize sometimes you sort of taken for granted that the conversation has moved on to a certain place, and then to feel it suddenly move several steps back, uh, it feels very violent. And uh, it's just, well, it's a strange moment, obviously, in Canada-US relations. I think under normal circumstances, we would probably see, you know, right-wing Canada uh, in a hurry to copy what's going on
Hmm.
in right-wing America and be this sort of like eager little sibling trying to be, just like Big Brother.
Yeah.
Um, what is sort of funny about this particular iteration is that because of Trump's desire to annex my country, which is such a deeply scary and unpopular move
Hmm.
across the
Hmm.
Canadian political spectrum. There is not a single political party, a single politician, really even the most,
Yeah.
right-wing maniac in Canada does not want. That is going to be a really big change, I think.
So let's end on a positive note because this is such a depressing thing. And your play is not depressing, so a happy thing. What's next for you after this? Something exciting, or are you just going to keep developing this more?
Yeah, well, I have another solo show
Mhm.
that I do that's called Iggy Beamish Destroys Traditional Marriage, and I'm going to be bringing that to Dublin in May. So that's the
You've
next
ever
thing on my
been there
calendar.
before?
I have. I've done the Heterosexuals in Dublin before. So I'm really excited. Then that was a really beautiful experience for
Mhm.
me. And so I'm really excited to be able to go back and do my other show there. And then I've just got a very busy
Good.
tour schedule lined up for the rest of the next several months. A lot of festivals, a lot of different cities, and performing both of these two solo shows that I kind of currently have in
So
my
let's finish
repertoire.
off. Do you think by the end of this run, you'd have converted many people to be heterosexual or many people to be homosexual? What do you think the rate's going to be?
Oh, my goal is always that there should be less straight people walking out of the theater than there were walking in. And here is a true story. I know that that has happened at least once.
Really?
Yes, I am friends with someone who was an audience member in my show, came with their partner, and at the time when they walked into the theater, they identified as, a cis
Mhm.
heterosexual couple. They watched the show, they sort of, I think, left in silence, went home, had a big conversation that night, and both kind of came out to each other and were like, oh, we're both bisexual, actually, right? And we know that, and it's like, yeah, I've always known that about myself, and I've always known that about you as well, but we've never talked about it before. And so now there are this queer couple who are sort of exploring their identities in different ways. And I like to take as much credit for that as
Few more for
possible.
us.
And
Okay,
that's only the time that I know about. So who knows? Who knows how many others I've
maybe there
converted?
should be a warning on your programs. This is going
Yeah.
to It's been great talking to you. Enjoy the rest of your stay in New York and the rest of your tour. We're going to put the details up, so I hope people will start harassing you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Number 2, leave trans people fuck alone. If a trans person needs a bathroom, needs hormones, needs an iced chai latte, you give it to them. Or you get the fuck out of the way so that someone else can. Trans people are very busy. They don't have the time for your nonsense. Number 3, leave drag queens fuck alone unless you are offering them a generous tip, which they deserve, because drag queens work harder than you do. They're not criminals. They're not grooming your children. And if those were things you actually cared about, you'd make churches 18 plus.